Why do Democrats love illegal immigration so much? I discuss that and more in this episode of the Mayoral Podcast. Welcome back in, everybody. I am your host, Matt Mayer. Before I get into today's content, please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and share with friends and family. Help me grow the channel. So, first thing I'm going to talk about today is the somewhat nothing burger that was released over the last week with the Epstein Files. There was a lot of stuff that came out. Nothing was really that new. Everything was kind of already known. We knew that Bill Clinton liked them young. There was a lot of people on the right that were saying that was extremely incriminating. It was just a testimony from somebody saying that they heard Jeffrey Epstein say that once before. So I don't think much is going to come of what was just released. The biggest thing we got to keep our eyes on is the tapes that were made at the Creep Island and presumably in other places that Jeffrey Epstein had these underage sex slaves perform these acts on these rich and powerful politicians and actors and actresses and whoever you think that may or may not have been involved. Again, what was just released, there was 900 pages. There was a second dump that was some more information that was on there. It's really just kind of like the testimony that was being transcribed. And it implicated there's a couple people that it looked a little bit worse for and people that it looked a little bit better for. Dershowitz being one of the people that was indicated. Him and Prince Andrew were two of the people that looked probably the worst coming out of this. Clinton and Trump, there was really nothing on Trump in terms of what was said. They just asked if they'd ever seen him there, and the witness had said no. Again, that doesn't absolve him of anything. But that ultimately is good for him that nothing came out. If he's got nothing to hide, which he's claimed he has, then nothing will come out. But again, there really wasn't much on there, so I didn't want to really cover much of it. I know in my last episode, I said I would get into it because it was right on the precipice of it actually being released. It got released, and there really wasn't too much information that came out. So if you want to check it out, there's plenty of links out there. Read through it yourself. You can type in somebody's name to see if they show up, and it'll show you the different times that name comes up. And a lot of times it's just the investigator asking, have you ever met this person? Have you ever interacted with that person? Whatever it is. So just wanted to cover that before I got into kind of more of the meat and potatoes of today's episode. And I mentioned this in my last episode. I've mentioned it in several episodes now. And the seemingly never-ending stream of protests that we're seeing that are pro-Palestine. I don't understand where these people are coming from. Actually, let me take that back. I do know where these people are coming from. They're clearly being paid. There's no way that these people are not being paid to be here. This is an example here. This is from this video was posted on January 6th of 2024. I don't know if it was from that day or the day before. This is Interstate 5 in just outside of Seattle, and they're completely blocking the traffic there and protesting to stop the genocide of the people of Palestine. Again, these people didn't give a shit before. Now there's a war that's going on there. So clearly these left-wing groups are funding them. That's the only logical explanation you could come with that provides this much energy for this cause, not only in the United States, but all around the world. And then I got an argument with somebody on Twitter. I said, these people need to be arrested because the cops were threatening to arrest them. It's like, no, this is illegal. You arrest them and punish them accordingly. And somebody had said on Twitter, I don't know if they're trolls. I don't know if they're dumb. Either way, come at me saying you have the right to peaceably assemble. Like, I understand what the First Amendment is, but there are limitations on that. And they sent me a clip that says you can block off a street if you get a permit. Yes. If you get a proper permit, then you can block off a street, and the authorities would be the ones to block that street off to properly protest. But they would never allow you to do that on an interstate. But these people are trying to make the case like, oh no, these people are doing they're doing it legally. No, they would never block an interstate. They would never say this is the street we're going to block off. And if they did, there wouldn't be traffic backed up or like this in this video, because they would have blocked it off prior to the protests happening. Which it makes no sense. But again, these left wingers are gonna support breaking the law so long as they agree with the cause. That's all they care about. And then you see, again, we talked about this before, the pro-Palestine taking over. They've taken over state capitol buildings. They went over to the United States Capitol building. This is going to tie into the January 6th discussion that happened all over the place. Of course, Democrats want to bring this up. They want to make things about January 6th. Most of the United States citizens have moved on. They do not want to move on. They want to make it about that. This is clearly not the same because these people are protesting for a cause that they believe in. They presumably aren't supposed to be there. They're all wearing these N95 masks, which tells me a couple things. When I talk about the obvious fact that these are being funded, there's two reasons they wear the mask. One, because they don't want, if they actually do have a job or have prospects of getting a job sometime, people don't want to have this come up in some type of, I'm not saying it would come up in a job interview, but somewhere down the road that they say, oh, well, you were one of the people that stormed the capital of California and were protesting in favor of Hamas. That's not a good look. You see what a lot of these major institutions are saying. They don't want to hire people that sign their name to this letter from Harvard. So that's one reason why they would do it. The second reason is these are some of the same people that are doing it in California. They're probably going to go do it all up and down the West Coast. That's how you know that this is funded by a left-wing organization. These people have masks on. You look at the Antifa people, they're all in full gear. You can't see anything. There's no distinguishable marks that you can make of these people. And it's the same type of people that show up at all these rallies. These are paid agitators. That's what these people are. So there's one of two options why they put the mask on. They don't actually believe it does anything. Nobody possibly logically can now. They want to hide their identity because they don't want this to cause them a future opportunity if they actually decide to get a real job. And the second reason is, again, like I just said, these are paid agitators and they're going to show up somewhere else. And they don't want to say, hey, weren't you in California last week? What are you doing in New York protesting? What the hell's going on here? So that's one of two reasons why they're doing it. And again, it's funded by the left. They want this type of chaos, especially leading up to the 2024 election. It seemed to work for them last time. Maybe it'll work for them again. Who knows? But that's where we're at. For some reason, either it's the most noble cause you've ever heard of in your life, the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine cause, or it's being funded. What's the logical explanation here? The logical explanation is that it's being funded. So then you had this debate that happened on Twitter. I tuned in for a little bit. According to Waz on Twitter, he's a good follow. He does a lot of cool things on Twitter, a lot of cool posts. He posted this video. This is a video between it's kind of three left-wingers and three right-wingers discussing and debating the January 6th incident, whether it was an insurrection or if it was just a protest gone wrong. Obviously, the people on the left are on this is an insurrection, this was a coup. And then the people on the right are saying, no, it was a protest that went wrong, that went too far. And there were agent provocateurs in the crowd from the federal agencies. So the big thing that I want to point out here, one, Alex Jones just kept talking over everyone. You couldn't even watch it. I don't know if you like Alex Jones, you don't like Alex Jones. In this particular, at least the parts that I saw, you couldn't even hear anyone talk on the left. So he looked kind of like a clown in my opinion during this whole debate, or at least the parts that I saw again. But the one thing that I didn't see anyone point out, and it's something that needs to be asked, and that is, one of these left-wingers were saying that it is a coup because he tried to prevent the certification of the electors, right? He asked Pence, he went to Pence, objecting to the electors, and had an alternate slate of electors. Now, that's a specious legal theory. There's cases where that's happened before. Now, this guy's saying, well, just because he's like, that's not the same as what happened. I think that it happened in Hawaii in the 1960s. It's true, it isn't the same, but it might be the closest thing you can point to as a legal precedent that it is something that's allowed. Let's forget about that for a second. The big thing is that he was objecting to the slate of electors. And there's nothing in the Constitution, to my knowledge, that says the president cannot object. And if he does, this is the way that he has to object. Now, I use the example of 2000, 2004, 2016, and 2020. Members of Congress, the first three examples were all Democrats objecting to the certification of the electors. And that was never called a coup by anyone. Again, if there is a precedent, if there is something in the Constitution or a law that was passed outside of an amendment that prohibits the president from going to the vice president, who is the president of the Senate, who is the one who certifies the election, and saying, I don't want you to certify the election. I think it was stolen. I think that these electors are illegitimate, whatever the case might be. Where does it say that the president cannot do it, but members of Congress can? That's my point. Is it out there? Does it look bad? Sure, it looked bad. I didn't like the way that it looked for Trump. I definitely didn't like the way that January 6th looked. But that doesn't mean just because Trump objected to the electors that he was attempting a coup or falls under a violation of the 14th Amendment. It doesn't mean that. And again, if you're going to make the claim that he attempted a coup by objecting to the slate of electors and appealing to the vice president of the United States, the president of the Senate, then you're going to have to show something that says you cannot do it if you're the president, but you could do it if you're basically anyone else. So that's a point that I've never seen anyone bring up, and they did not bring up in this argument. Again, it's a very long discussion. Maybe somebody did, but I didn't see anything on Twitter about it. I didn't read anything of anyone saying that. But that's my point in what is being missed in this argument, in my opinion. That's something that's being missed, and it's an opportunity for conservatives to point out the hypocrisy in saying that was actually a coup when it was not. Then you see, this is going to tie into kind of my bigger production here. I put together some information to put out there. I'm going to put it together all on Twitter, but this is from Greg Abbott, just saying that the Biden administration is suing Greg Abbott because he signed a law making it illegal for an illegal immigrant to enter or attempt to enter Texas directly from a foreign nation. So the Biden administration, they keep saying, oh, we're concerned about the border, but they're doing nothing about it. And they keep pointing the finger at the Republicans. But really what the Republicans are doing, they want to get more security to keep people out, whereas the bills that are being presented in Congress are bills that would fund more people at the border, more U.S. agents at the border, but that's for processing to get people into the country, which is exactly the opposite of what the Republicans want to do. So they're saying, oh, the Republicans are blocking this bill, but that bill is to let more people in quicker. So that's not what the Republicans are looking for. That's not what the American people are generally looking for. They don't want this influx of massive illegal immigration. And you ask yourself, like, well, are they doing this on purpose? And of course they're doing it on purpose. And there's an obvious reason to why they're doing this on purpose. Now, this is from Elon Musk. He says, at this point, there's no question that this administration is actively facilitating illegal immigration. The numbers speak for themselves. And this is just a graph showing the Biden administration and the crazy amounts of illegal immigrants that have crossed the border. You see that one really big spike during Trump and then, relatively pretty low, even though Obama was way, way more in line with some type of normalcy than the Biden administration, or the number of legal immigrants that are just pouring into this country. So again, why would they be doing this? The answer is obvious. This tweet is from, or this image is from right before the 2020 election. Now, this tweet here is from November of 2023, but this image originally is from right before the 2020 election. So you can see here, and it's just a breakdown of what if only these people voted, and you can see exactly why they want illegal immigrants to come in. They want to naturalize these people. They're talking about, in some states, giving these people driver's license so they can show up to the polls and presumably vote, and they're going to vote overwhelmingly for Democrats. Now, again, this is an older graph. This one is it's very good information, but I decided that I was going to do a newer version of that. So I was going to take the exit polls from the 2020 election, and trust me, you would think that they would have all this information. It would be pretty readily available. I actually had to subscribed to the New York Times. That was the only place I could find an adequate documentation of the exit polls where they had every single state and generally speaking had all these different categories kind of covered. So I went and said, okay, well, what's the new map look like? What would that look like in 2024? And this is what I came up with here. If just females voted, what would the electoral map look like? It would be a landslide for Democrats. Right off the bat, you know why they attack males and they call masculinity toxic masculinity. Well, it serves their purpose. They want females to vote. They want to demoralize males and make them less likely to vote. This is election interference just by the way that they talk about men, specifically white men, to try to get them to stay home and think that, well, there's nothing they can do with their vote because this is just the way of the world, that men are toxic and kind of demoralize them and keep them away from the polls. So you look at this and you say, okay, well, females, if they were the only ones to vote, there would be a 415 to 123 landslide for Democrats. Then you look at males, okay? And you see there's a huge difference. Now, I put the ones that I didn't color in, we got New Jersey and Virginia here. I marked those as toss-ups. And for reference, again, I'm going off the exit polling from the New York Times, and this is anything that was within 2 points. One way or the other, it didn't matter. I just said if it's within 2 points, I'm going to mark it as a toss-up because all polling is wrong, some is useful, okay? So this is going to give us an idea of where we're at. So anything that was 3 or more points, I said, okay, I'm going to give that to Democrats or Republicans, whatever it might be. And in this case, New Jersey and the state of Virginia, for males, broadly speaking, no race, were 330 for Republicans, 181 for Democrats. So clearly you're already seeing the breakdown in why there's toxic masculinity, the demoralization of the male population, because they don't vote for Democrats. Generally speaking, they don't. Then you look at white people. So getting a little bit further, the numbers are pretty similar between white people and males, just males in general, but you got a little bit more toss-up states. So the total elector votes, you'd have 330 to 325. However, you got a lot more toss-ups. You see New Jersey, New York, Illinois, and New Mexico are all toss-ups. And there's a couple of states that carry some good volume. You got New York at 28, you got Illinois at 19, Jersey at 14. So not insignificant states if just white people voted. So then you see, okay, where do they go? Like the patriarchy. They're attacking white males. They're attacking white people. They're saying white people are evil. White people are bad. Like, I don't even think that they necessarily believe it. When I started looking at these polls, I'm like, oh, this is why they're saying it. They want to keep people away from the polls, or they want people to not vote for the white party or whatever you want to call it, the Republicans, the conservatives, because they don't vote for you. Like that's the only reason white people, generally speaking, don't vote for Democrats anywhere near as much as people of color, people that identify as not white, Mexican, Hispanic people, black people, Asian people, whatever. So that's why they're attacking white people. In my opinion, more than anything, is it's just to stay in power. It's a power grab. They make white people seem evil and wrong, and they want to, again, like I said, demoralize people, keep people away from the polls. They would want much less white people at the polls and much more people of color at the polls. Why do you think they're opening the southern border? Because those people, it doesn't even matter. Like it's going to be 85% in favor of Democrats if they're able to get those people to vote in one form or another. As we move further down, you look at white women, and white women still fairly Republican. There's only a couple of toss-up states there. 321, a pretty easy electoral victory for Republicans if it's just white women voting. White males, forget about it. Like they want nothing to do with the white males. 384 electoral votes with 2 toss-ups. It doesn't even matter. You need 300 or you need 270 to win. This is a landslide. You only got the East Coast, the Northeast, not even like the full East Coast. You got the Northeast, and then you got the West Coast, and that's it. And everywhere else is nothing but Republicans. If it's nothing but white males voting. So again, why do they attack white males? This is why they're attacking white males. They may not hate us. I don't know. I don't know these people, but I know that they want to win. And making white males look bad and demoralize and then keep them away from the polls. Like that's exactly what they want to do. That said, I don't think that the Republicans love us either. I don't fall in love with Republicans either, because I don't think that they probably don't love us either. They probably don't like us. They just know that we're going to more than likely vote for them. Then you see here, okay, college educated whites. So they get us into those indoctrination camps. I talked about it last episode, how overwhelmingly liberal these institutions are. The University of California, if I'm not mistaken, 97% of the donations went to Democrats or liberal causes, and 3% went to Republicans or conservative causes. So, yeah, they want these people, they want white people, they want people of color, they want everyone to go to the universities, because the universities are going to teach them that they're smarter than everybody, and liberalism is the way to go. That's what they're going to teach. That's what we're going to teach everyone. So you look at this, college-educated whites, 311 to 199. It's a pretty easy victory for Democrats with a couple of toss-ups that are on the map. Now you look at this last one here, before I get to people of colors, and this is non-college educated, whites. And it's an absolute landslide, 493 to 37, with one toss-up being the state of Oregon. The one toss-up being the state of Oregon. A couple of states go to the Democrats. It's an absolute beatdown. And then the last one here is non-white. So there were certain states, like for example the state of Utah, that didn't have a sample size of black people, because I think that was about 1 or 2% of the population, but it had a sample size of people that identified as not white, and that was kind of pretty close to 50-50. It surprisingly shows up here as red. I believe it was like 50 to 47. It just crossed that threshold as not being a toss-up. Arizona is an example of, there was like there really wasn't a sample size of black people. It was all like Hispanic people, but they were overwhelmingly Democrats. So I just put like non-whites because that was the largest sample size within that particular state, based on what the New York Times was able to put together based on their exit polling. Again, some of these states didn't have enough information for them to put it out. Like the state of Wyoming, I think, didn't have enough people of color, because again, there's 4 people that live in Wyoming, and they weren't able to get a hold of the one person of color. So I just logically said, okay, it's overwhelmingly Democrat. I'm just going to fill that in because I don't want to mark that as a toss-up. It's more than likely going to be that. So that's kind of what I did with like 1 or 2 of these states. But generally speaking, this is where it's going to fall. You see, Montana and Utah were both very razor thin, just above the threshold of being a toss-up for people of color or people that are non-white. Same thing with Oklahoma. This is why they want people to come in the country illegally. This is an overwhelming, there's no chance ever for Republicans to ever get elected. You see Montana and Utah actually marked as red. Those were razor thin. Those were about 3 or 4 points based on the polls that the New York Times had that I'm using here. Oklahoma, I think it was 1 point one way or the other. So it's just an absolute landslide. There would be no reason to even question who was going to win if it was nothing but people that weren't white voting in elections in this country. So again, you ask yourself the question, why are they doing it? I go back to what we were talking about earlier with the pro-Palestinian cause. They want people to think that there's more people out there that support Hamas, that are pro-Palestine, because they're putting these displays all across this country and all across the world. For the last 2+ months, they've been doing this in demonstration of being pro-Palestine, when they didn't really give a shit. Again, this is a left-wing, these protests are left-wing funded. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no other logical explanation for this type of enthusiasm for this little plot of land that's in the Mediterranean. There's no other way around it. Now, there are going to be some people that are actually committed to the cause, but the overwhelming majority of the people that are putting these protests together and organizing, those people have to be paid agitators. They have to be. There's not that type of support. And again, what does that go back to? That goes back to making people think that there is more support for these causes than there actually is, demoralizing some of these people, and saying, "Oh my God, I cannot believe that there's this many people out there that are pro Hamas. I can't believe it." At the same time, opening the southern border, letting illegal immigrants pour in, demonizing white people, especially white males. Like, this is all part of a plan to remain in power. Again, I don't think that they give a shit about any of these people. I don't think they necessarily hate us. They might hate someone like me, a white male. They might like the people of color that are coming across the border. I don't know, but what I do know is they do like the percentages in which these people that are coming over illegally are going to vote for them, especially females. Again, I showed the breakdown: female versus male. It's overwhelming Democrat for female, overwhelming Republican for male, and then you break that down into non-whites, and it's overwhelming majority, like over 500 electoral votes for non-whites, and that's not even factoring in that's factoring in the males that are non-white too. If it was just females that were non-white, it would be the whole map would be blue. There's no way that the map would even have a couple of toss-up or states that slightly lean Republican. No way. That's all to say, don't be demoralized. This is an election year. Don't stay home because the media is telling you that white people are evil. The media is telling you that everybody loves Hamas, that illegal immigration is the right and moral thing to do. There's more people out there than you know or think of that feel the same way you do about these issues. People that believe that Hamas is a terrorist group and they should be eradicated. And there's more people than you know that think illegal immigration is not good for this country. That this country was built on immigrants. That's what they're going to point to. Like, hey, this is built on immigrants. You just don't want these people here because they don't look like you. No. Everything needs to be done legally. That's why we have the systems that we have in place. Now, it's not perfect. It is not perfect. But don't let them tell you and make you think that there's more people out there that want people just pouring over the southern border than there actually are. The numbers are on our side when it comes to these issues. Don't be demoralized. Go out there, talk to your friends, talk to your family, let them know not to give up. This country is worth fighting for. And it's people like you out there that are listening to me that are going to make the difference in what we see in the coming years. That's it for this episode of the Mayoral Podcast. Please make sure you hit the like button, subscribe on your way out, and I will see you all in the next video.